Hey, this is Meredith Elliott Powell. You know what time it is. It is one of my favorite times of the week. The time where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to help you turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage. I've got a great guest for you today, and we're going to talk about some, I don't know, different topics, but some really strong strategies that you can walk away with to make your journey as an entrepreneur just a little bit stronger. So hang on, and we will get started. All right, again, I'm Meredith Elliott Powell. Welcome back to the show. Now, my guest today is Alex Raymond. He is a visionary entrepreneur and thought leader in just about every area out there, including account management and conscious leadership. He has over a decade of experience founding and leading companies. He also lives in funky Boulder, Colorado, which tells you quite a bit about him. And today we're going to talk about the entrepreneur's journey. But Alex, where I like to start is by just having you tell the audience your story. How did you even start down the entrepreneur pathway?
Yeah, Meredith, thank you, and thanks for the question. I have a more traditional quote unquote corporate upbringing insofar as I went to college and I went and did a consulting for a while, and I worked for a software company. Then I got an MBA, and in so doing, I always kind of felt this itch. I was like, I always know I'm going to have the urge to go be an entrepreneur, and I finally did it when I think I was in my early 30s, so probably like 31 or 32 is when I quit my job and went to go start my first company. And incredible experience, super tough, lots of ups and downs, really challenging, and at the same time the kind of thing where I thought, I think this is where I want to be spending my energy. I'm essentially unemployable by anyone else at this point, so I might as well just work for myself and see what I can create. And creativity is really one of the big driving forces for me. I'm not a creative person like a musician or an artist, but I find that building a business is essentially a creative act.
It is very much a creative act. I think you're just constantly presented with obstacles. And what I found, the reason I knew I was an entrepreneur is because obstacles got me excited rather than posed a problem. And I found when I worked in corporate America, most people didn't like the obstacle. If you did, you
Hmm.
probably needed to come on out. So I'm really intrigued by this idea of the conscious entrepreneur. How did you get there? What does that even mean? I mean, we definitely use that term in our language, but I don't know. I think it can have a lot of different connotations.
Yeah, this is a fantastic question, and I've been running an event, an in-person conference called the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit for 3 years, and we have our fourth one coming up in May, at the end of May, in Boulder, Colorado. We also run a podcast called The Conscious Entrepreneur, and the whole premise to this is to help founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs work through the inner game of running a company. And so, as you know, we have this, we have this idea that my success is externally defined, and that I've got to go find answers outside of me. So if my company isn't growing, it's because I need to change my pricing or offer a new product or get better at sales. And we have a lot of external orientation, even towards success. What I found after my own personal experience of being an entrepreneur and being a mentor to many other entrepreneurs over the past 10 or so years is, everyone, when they come to me and they sit there and they want to talk about whatever's going on in their business and they think it's something external, it's actually what they really want to know is, when am I going to start to feel okay inside? And I realized, wow, okay, a lot of people are saying this. I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm not the only one who's got stress or anxiety, or am dominated by fears or a scarcity mindset or imposter syndrome, or whatever the number of things are that might afflict an entrepreneur along their journey. And so Conscious Entrepreneur is our opportunity to broaden the conversation around, what does it mean to start and build a company? Where does growth come from? Where does resilience come from? How do I get my energy and use it in the best possible way? So it's a tremendous community of leaders, CEOs, founders, and so on. And everyone understands that you've got to work on yourself first. Like the path to victory here goes straight on the inside, if you will.
I think I think you have to be a little unconscious to start out as an entrepreneur, because if you thought about it too much, you would never get on this journey. But you're so right. I mean, the path of the entrepreneur, I know, gosh, I've been at this since 20 some years now, and you can still see me run around the house. One day I'm sure we're going completely broke, and the next day I have so much work I can't possibly handle it. So, and it's the same, frenetic energy that we all run around with. So how does one start on the journey to become a conscious entrepreneur?
Yeah. So this comes up in conversation sometimes where people say, okay, I get it. I understand the concepts or the ideas, but like, so what? Or what's the step that I want to be taking here? And the way that I always talk about this, Meredith, is I say the very first step is a commitment to yourself. So the
Mm,
very first step is the commitment that says, I want to change what I'm feeling. I want to change how I'm showing up in the world. I want to change how I'm reacting to this situation or this person or whatever it is. And in that message of change is I commit to showing up differently. I commit to being different. I commit to doing the important work that I might be avoiding or what have you. And so you can think about it as self exploration or investing in yourself. But I always think the very first step is that commitment. It's the shift, and that's the shift from unconscious to conscious, right? It's to say, am I willing
yes.
to move from where I am to where I want to go? And that commitment to say I'm going to do it is important, because here's what's going to happen. If you commit to yourself, you may find that you're changing some of your habits. You're changing some of the things that you're doing in the evening. You're spending time in different ways. You're spending time with different people. That's not going to feel comfortable all the time. Change is uncomfortable. This is a big part of your podcast.
Yeah.
Change is uncomfortable. And so if I'm saying, oh, I want to make some different outcome in my life, I want something different out there, I've got to be willing to put in the work. So just like it takes time for us to build any type of skill, one of the skills is self inquiry, right? So think of it, that as the most powerful one. So self
Yeah.
inquiry is the most powerful one, and I've got to be willing to commit to doing this. I just want to point out here, when I'm talking about conscious entrepreneur, or using this phrase conscious, some
Yeah.
people have this idea that, oh, we must be talking about a bunch of barefoot hippie people, or quote unquote non-serious entrepreneurs, type of idea. And that is absolutely not the message I want to get across. What I posit here is that the inner work is not only super important along the way toward building a big, impressive, ambitious, gigantic company or project, one that has a huge impact, but it's a critical part of that journey. Like, you can't not have this inner journey as well. And so I like the word conscious, but I understand that some people think of it in different
Yeah.
ways, and they may have different ideas about what it means.
What I love. Well, you are in Boulder, I am in Asheville, so the chance that people might be thinking this is hippie, it might be I mean, not too far away. But I love this idea of committing to yourself first. I mean, when I think of conscious, and what I love about it when I think about it as an entrepreneur, is I think to be intentional, I think to be mindful, I think to get my mind to overtake, rather than reacting first or taking action first, but like to really be intentional. And one reason I left corporate America was I'd worked my whole life for a job that, when I finally got conscious, I didn't want that job, and I didn't want to do that. I think as entrepreneurs, you can move so fast and so without thought, because you're just trying to keep every ball in the air, that you don't end up creating exactly what you want to create. So I love this idea of beginning with commitment. But here's my question about commitment, is that I just read a statistic. I don't know if it's true or not, but by the end of January, beginning of February, 88% of people have given up on their New Year's resolution. So there you all, you drink too much on New Year's Eve, you eat too much over Christmas, but by God, on New Year's Day, you're going to make a commitment. And by the end of the month, you've broken it. What does it what does it take to commit? Is it a daily practice to commit? Is it a different lifestyle commit? How does one commit and then stay committed?
Since we know that change is hard and, people going through this are going to meet a lot of resistance because the system is not set up for this sort of exploration.
Right,
The system is set up for you to go do your thing, like produce your share of GDP, for example, right?
right.
And so change is going to be hard. The best way to get through this, the best way to actually get the results and the outcomes that you're looking for. And by the way, that means building a business while staying healthy, while staying married, while staying sane,
Right.
while staying a good person, like those things. These are really happy, of course. Like these are really important parts of it. If we say we're committed to this, what's the best way to start to implement, which is your question. And I'll say the best way to start implementing this is to have a community. So to build
Mm.
or join or somehow affiliate with a community of people who have similar intentions, similar ideas, and are willing to support you and themselves along the journey. So this could be something like there are a lot of founder, CEO, or entrepreneur groups. So EO, YPO, Vistage, things like that. There's, of course, the Conscious Entrepreneur community that we're building. And the nice thing about that is it's not like you go to these meetings and there's no problems in the world. No, it's the opposite. You just have a different vocabulary, a different way of talking about what's going on and what your challenges and issues are. And people are asking you deeper, next level questions, for example, and
Right.
generally speaking, are supporting you along the way in ways that can be really, really special and powerful. And so two people who are saying, oh, there's got to be a better way, or I don't want to wake up feeling like this anymore, or, whatever is going on in their minds, finding a community of people, especially the ones that you can look up to, right? So people who are successful,
Yeah.
people who are doing interesting things, people who are dynamic and energizing, then that's can just be such a great thing for you. You can tap into that community, tap into that network.
I love what you were talking about with this whole idea of, building a business and being a better significant other or spouse, being
Mm.
healthy, being why why in our society, I don't know if this way internationally, but why in the US society, why did we get so away from that? I mean, I think like one of the one of the most common things I see are very successful people falling somewhere between 45 and 60 years old. And they're very successful from society standards, but they've left parts of their life out that at this point it's starting to come home to roost, right? Like, when
Hmm.
we're all running around like a chicken with our head cut off in our 30s, we don't really think about anything like that, probably partway through our 40s, but somewhere around 45, 50, you start to think about that. And why is that? Why isn't the journey shaped more holistically?
Oh, I mean, we are so addicted to and glorifying of hustle culture,
Hmm.
right? So we congratulate people who go the extra mile, people who have whatever it is, mud on their pants and blood on their knees and just
Yeah.
kept going. And all the stories, especially in the entrepreneur realm, are about, oh, this person who they just didn't quit and they just kept going and they climbed over 101 obstacles and rocks and walls to get there and so on. And so we have this idea that struggle is part of the journey and that we really want to glorify the hustle, even to the point where it's like, oh, this person didn't sleep all weekend, but they finally got the thing delivered to the client or whatever it is. And those stories, while they can be interesting and inspiring, for the most part, it's not a great way to live your life for the
Right.
long term. But mainly, it's we orient toward these external definitions of success, and we assume that external things are going to solve our internal problems, and they don't. And that's exactly what you're pointing out. So often, with a little bit of maturity, a little bit of gray hair, people wake up and notice, hey, wow, I may have things surrounding me in my life that are supposed to make me feel good. Maybe it's a nice house or a nice car, whatever it is. And I know from my upbringing and my socialization that these are things that are supposed to make me feel good.
Right.
Yet I have
There
this
you go.
feeling of, stress or anxiety or emptiness or whatever it is on the inside. And
Mhm.
until you realize that you're the creator of your own reality, you're the creator of your own happiness, you're always chasing it outside. And so I've been really inspired to learn about that and to practice that as a way of taking control over my time and energy, for example, and figuring out what really makes me tick.
What led you down this path to start to think about becoming a conscious entrepreneur instead of just an entrepreneur?
So many years ago, I had started a software company here in Boulder, and we applied to one of these business accelerator programs, a very well known one called TechStars, really well known across the U.S. Does a lot of work in primarily software, but a lot of different tech, and was one of the original kind of big tech accelerators. So it was a big deal to get into. It was like this hyper competitive process. They accept something like 1% of all applications. And we were able to take part. So it was super exciting for us to be able to do that. So this is a very structured 13-week program where you've got mentors and you've got all this coaching and guidance and all these resources there to help you succeed. And it's a cohort of like 10 or 12. There's like 10 or 12 companies in our group. And as we're going through this, one day I am back at home in the evening, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and my wife looks over at me and she's like, "What's the matter with you? What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Huh? What do you mean?" And she says, "You're sitting there, you got this look on your face, this dour look on your face, this scowl across your brow. You know, you look upset, you look unhappy. You're supposed to be at the pinnacle of your career. You're supposed to be doing all these great things. You got this company, you got accepted to this program, you're in the middle of it all. You know, why aren't you excited about that? Why are you so miserable?"
Wow.
That's a yeah. So this was the effect of hitting me on the head with a 2x4. So once I got over my defensiveness, right, my initial reaction was like, no, whatever, fight about it. Once I got over my defensiveness and realized, you know what, she's right. I am miserable. Why? What's going on here? What is actually happening? And what I realized was I was spending my time in this program comparing myself to everybody else, right? Oh, this team's farther ahead because of that. Oh, they raised more money. Oh, they have a cooler product. Oh, they're in a sexier industry. You know, whatever it is. I had all
Yeah.
these stories in my head, right? That I somehow I wasn't as good as everyone else. I had this story that I didn't belong, that I'd somehow snuck in, right? And when was everyone gonna find out that I'd like snuck into the party uninvited, kind of thing. And I had all these demons in my head. And I realized, first of all, these things do not stand the light of day. So that's the number one thing, is when you start to question and really say, is this true? Like, is whatever crazy thought I have right now true? It's most often not. And so I started to realize, hey, these are things under my control. I had this opinion, I had this view that these were things external to me that were outside of my control. What I realized was these were things that are inside my control. And so for me, this kicked off a long period of exploring, and I did all the, whatever, videos and seminars and retreats and read the books and did this and that and the, audio books and blah, 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 like all of that for a long, long time. And I joined men's group. I joined entrepreneur groups. I started an entrepreneur group. And I realized, I'm not the only one who feels this way. But as
Right.
entrepreneurs, we all tend to be overeducated, high achievers, hyper ambitious people. We don't necessarily have the vocabulary of how to talk about this. We don't necessarily have the places where we can go to talk about this stuff. It's very difficult if you are a startup founder, an entrepreneur, to turn to your spouse and say, just for example, "I'm terrified. I don't think this is going to work. We're going to be out. We're going to be out on our asses in 2 weeks if everything goes bust." Whatever it is. It's very hard to do that and not have it be incredibly destabilizing to your relationship. And so
Mhm.
we know that a lot of entrepreneurs therefore hold things in. Even to go to your founding team or other executives in your company, there's still a lot that's just on the CEO founder shoulders. So you
Right.
can't go
Very
to them
much
and
so.
you can go to them and say, "Hey, something is happening," but you can't go to them and say, "I'm rethinking my entire existence. Why did I ever start this business? Who thought this was a good idea? All I want to do is go to Bali for 2 years." Um, those are also not the kind of conversations that you can have. And so my realization was there's going to be benefit to opening up the conversation, to creating the place where this kind of conversation can happen. And that's really what we've built with the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, is a place for people to show up and say, wow, I am not alone in this journey. Everyone else, they're doing interesting things, they're building great companies, they're doing whatever, but everyone else faces all these similar challenges of how to be that person as they're doing it.
So talk a little bit about the summit. It's coming up in May. This is going to be your third,
Hmm.
is that right? So
This is
talk a
going to be,
little.
this is year
Yeah,
4. Yeah.
this is your four. So talk a
Hmm.
little bit about the summit. What happens there, and what entrepreneurs find, what they walk away with.
So I think about the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit as this incredible community of bright, dedicated, supportive, creative, interesting, talented individuals that I absolutely love. And we get together for 2 days. This year it's going to be May 28th and 29th in Boulder, Colorado, and which is a beautiful, beautiful place. It's a great time of year as well to be here. And the whole premise of this conference is how to build the business of your dreams without sacrificing yourself, right?
Love
Because
that.
we know that too many of us, we just leave too many pieces of ourselves
Yeah.
on the ground while we're out there doing our companies. And so throughout the entire time that we've been doing this, so first one was in 2022. I've seen my role as sort of being a curator. And so what I do is I spend a lot of time either on podcasts or just other folks I meet, learning cool things, meeting incredible people, feeling inspired, and I like to curate some of these ideas. So we'll pull together a bunch of people and bring them and say, hey, let's talk about how your things apply to the entrepreneurial context, or how do they make sense to a founder. And so as a result, we have a very, very high quality event. This is a super high quality event. We've had speakers like Ryan Holiday, who's of course a Stoic author, Gay Hendricks, the person who came up with Zone of Genius,
Mhm.
Liz Fosline, who does all these incredible drawings and art pieces, Keith Perazzi. So
Yeah.
really,
Wow.
yeah. So really, really great group.
Really
And
great speakers.
really great speakers. This year, our main speaker is going to be Dr. Benjamin Hardy. He is the
Mhm.
co-author of a number of books with Dan Sullivan, but the most recent one, and the
Yeah.
one that really caught me, is 10x is easier than 2x.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
great
It's a
book,
great
fantastic
book.
concept. And what I really like about Ben Hardy is this is all about the psychology behind the growth. So at the summit, we're not doing a 10x 10x growth thing, and the answer is raise your price or
Right.
increase your distribution channels, or no. The conversation is, what do I need to learn, adapt, or overcome in my own psychology and as I show up in the world that will allow me to find 10x growth versus being on an incremental path.
Right.
And so this is the kind of conversation that we have. It challenges a lot of people, because there's a lot of people out there who just want to go to the seminar and hear the like 3 tactical tidbits and take those back and implement them. Instead, they come to the Conscious Entrepreneur and we start to say, who are you as an entrepreneur? Who are you becoming as an entrepreneur? What things do you need to leave behind? What things do you need to adapt? Where do you need to round out, the you that's experiencing the world right now, and this kind of thing. And so it can be pretty tough for people, but that's where the magic is, because
Right.
people start to realize, oh, now I can change my mindset about whatever topic, or I'm going from scarcity to abundance, or I'm going from greed to openness, or whatever the things are that might have been driving them in the past. We're giving them tools on how to highlight these things, how to approach them, deal with them, etc. So it's a very open, a lot of people there are open-minded. And the main premise, Meredith, is, we all believe that growth, so in this case, the theme for the year this year is this 10x growth. We all believe that growth starts from within.
Right. So it's hard to believe, but we are just about at the end of this podcast, and I want to make sure that you tell everybody how to find out more about the summit. And I think this is so powerful and so important, because what drove you to the point of success as an entrepreneur, it's hard to let go of, but it's those things you've got to let go of to really get to to truly get to the next level. But I always like to end the podcast with 2 questions. One is, how do people find you, find out about your work, follow you and your two fantastic podcasts, and of course your summit. But also, what is your biggest piece of advice for anybody out there struggling to thrive in an uncertain marketplace? What would be your words of wisdom on how they could turn it into their greatest competitive advantage?
When people are struggling to figure out which way is up, and it's very tough and competitive out there these days, one of the things that I think is the most powerful thing that someone can do is to stay curious
Mm,
and question whatever's going on. Sort of find the second level answer ask the follow-up question when you are out there trying to figure out reality. Because at the end of the day, all we are is we're just humans trying to figure out what are we doing here, what's going on in this world, and it can be really overwhelming. So even in the professional context, as I'm trying to navigate all this stuff, stay curious, ask the follow-up questions, try to figure out what's really going on out there. Like don't show up trying to prove your version of the world or your vision or your idea. Try to really understand what's happening.
Oh, such great advice. And how do people find out about you, find out about the summit?
Great. So the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit is at consciousentrepreneur.us. And I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, Alex Raymond on LinkedIn, and I should pop up. And that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Well, thank you. This has been an amazing show. What a paradigm shifting episode. I want to thank you so much for your time, Alex, and thank you, our listeners. Don't forget to join us right back here next week for another episode of Thrive. And if you got some time at the end of May, sign up for the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit. I have a feeling you will not be sorry. I'll see you next week.